Virginia quake and the Colorado quake. And then, George, have you been paying attention to the strange sounds in Kiev and Colorado before the quake?
Well, and also, how about Windsor, Ontario, across from Detroit? They're hearing strange hums too, Stephen.
Right, and what's fascinating to me about this is that in my book, Weather Wars, I talk about shockwave weapons. And shockwave weapons would be like the thing you've been likening it to would be thunder that would be on a cadence that would indicate that it's under control, manned control, or something control. And I think what's fascinating is in Kiev, they tried to explain it away by saying, oh, it's just a water anomaly. But when we're seeing all these different sounds being identified, and some people have even gone and graphed them and are recording them and running them through sound analyzers, we're coming up with a pretty telling, I think, and compelling case that there is a lot of manipulation going on. It was really hard, George, and still is hard for most people to wrap their minds around the fact there is technology that can not only steer or direct hurricanes, but can initiate volcanoes and earthquakes. Two former Secretaries of Defense are on record as stating that. Both Secretary of Defense Cohen, we've seen Zbigniew Brzezinski writing in his book Between Two Ages talking about it, where one nation makes war on another nation using new weapons that are unknown to the public, and then they blame God for everything. But I think it's fascinating, and still we're seeing now where there's overlap. And with these situations going on in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the Canary Islands, Cumbre Vieja, all of those earthquakes that are in, I would say, the most tenuous seismic zones are now starting to indicate we're in for some big trouble in the way of tsunamis. Obviously, there have been a few smaller tsunamis, but right now in the South Pacific and actually in Indonesia, a little further west, we're seeing Mount Tambora, which in 1815 was the largest volcanic explosion in history, coming active, and we're also seeing Anak Krakatau, son of Krakatoa, 1883, and then 22 other volcanoes now have been put on alert status in Indonesia. And if we skip over to the Czech-German border, there have been 10,000 earthquakes, George, in 10 days.
Is the planet trying to tell us something, Stephen?
Well, I think that there are people that literally are out to set off worldwide chaos. And again, I take the position, as you know, that in order for the New World Order to come to power, they basically want to do away with the old world order. And so, given the technology, and obviously there are reciprocal and ancillary effects that they can't even figure in, but as your guest was saying, the sun is what determines the weather on planet Earth. And you can argue all you want about greenhouse gases or basically bloated politicians belching, but the point is that we are now experiencing, I would say, the time of sorrows where we're losing a lot of lives around the world. The famine that's I've talked about since you and I first started doing radio close to a decade ago, we're now seeing just the flooding taking out the Mississippi River Valley. And Holly Dale, by the way, just put up a new chart, and we're already at 100% of the earthquakes that we had last year at all the different magnitudes, and we're only 8 months into the year. So we're way ahead, and things are ramping up. And George, you know that people are talking behind the scenes. They know that there seems to be a systematic effort to downplay the earthquakes, and especially their intensity. And we're now in the realm of lame excuses for everything. And a lame excuse will only go so long before the people get tired of hearing the nonsense.
Well, you know, and Jim Birkeland, geologist, Stan Deo, of course, Mitch Bactress, so many people, Stephen, think that big ones are still coming and coming soon.